Hi, thank you very much, Will, and for inviting me. And hello, everybody. I'm Ella, and I've been studying the Godwits at the Avon Heathcote Estuary or South Shore Spit for 9 years now. And how I got into birding, I moved to South Shore in 2016. I didn't really know much about the place. It was a little strip of land you saw on your way out to Sumner. And I'd been out there a couple of times to see farewell the Godwits. But anyway, I moved there and liked it. And at the time, I was actually waiting for a hip replacement, so I wasn't much chop. I could barely walk. I couldn't work, but I could, however, go down to the estuary and watch the birds, and I could go out in the kayak. And that's basically how I started. I went out in the kayak with a pair of binoculars and down there, and I watched the birds. And the more I learned about them, the more I got to love them. Is it that one? And these are, that way. Sorry. Right, so this is the Avon Heathcote Estuary, and it's South Shore Spit. Now, I live just about here. So for me to get down the estuary, it's about a 3-minute walk. And I'd go down there basically as often as I can, depending on the tide times and when I'm at work, and what I've got to do. But yep, I'll go down there like day in, day out, or I'll have a break and I won't go down. So anyway, with the tides, where the Godwits roost will depend on the height of the tide. So if we've got a low tide, like 2 metre or below, they'll be out here, so they'll be a fair way out. And then as the tide gets higher, they come in closer, and they'll come into here, and then they come in to here, and then when you get 2.5 metres or over, they come around onto the beach. And you can get really close to them on the beach if you're very careful, and you get some good photos. And anyway, this is a flock of Godwits migrating. And I was lucky enough a couple of years ago to watch a group of Godwits migrate. I was going for a walk down the estuary. All I had was the binoculars, and it was actually the 5th of March. I remember the date. So it was quite early in the season. And our Godwits will leave, they'll start leaving the first week of March, and through March they'll go. And anyway, I was walking down there, hot day, tide wasn't in or out, there was, water around, little pools of water, and I just heard this very distinct call. And if anyone's heard a Godwit call, it's sort of, they've got quite a low two-toned call. And it's that call, but it's a higher pitch, and it really, really carries. You could hear it way across the estuary. And this Godwit let out this call. And then way across the estuary, I hear this other Godwit call back. Mm. And I thought to myself, now hang on, I'm going to sit down and watch this. Mm. And then the bird calls back, and then the next thing, a couple of birds arrive with these other birds. There's about like 20 of them out feeding anyway. And then the Godwit again let out a call. Heard another call from over there, and next thing, a couple more birds come in, join the flock. And this went on for about an hour, and the Godwit would keep calling, bird would call, 1 or 2 would arrive, and they formed a group, and grew to about 100. And anyway, some were eating, some were busy bathing and preening, one was even asleep. And then all of a sudden, they just got really, really excited, went really, really noisy, and then up they went, and then they went up, and they circled around a bit, and then they split into 2 groups, and off they went. And then I just watched as they formed the V, and they went, and that was really incredible to watch that. And I've seen them do it again, but not as good as that. I've seen, I used to go down in dusk and watch them, and you'd see groups going out and you'd hear the call, but I've never seen it as good as that again. But before they start migrating, they actually get very noisy. They're normally quite a quiet bird when they're on the roost, but before they migrate, they're really chatty and noisy, and I suppose they're talking to each other. Where are you going? You know, and anyway, they, like I said, they've gone. They're usually gone by about the 25th of March, so it's all crazy 3 weeks, and then they're all gone, and we're just left with our wintering numbers. And they usually arrive back in the second week of September. Now, these are the counts that I've been doing over the winter. So you can see here we had 1668 last year. That was a very good number. So you can see by the 14th of March, by the second week of March, 1,000 of them gone already. And then by the next day, look, there's over another 100 have gone. The next day, another over 100 are gone, and then a few more, and then down to here, 29th and 30th of March. That's pretty much your wintering numbers. And then come April, they start building up again. Now, these are Godwits coming, the young juveniles coming from other estuaries, deciding where they want to live, and they've obviously decided, yeah, we'll stay in South Shore for a while. So they stayed through May, and then in end of May, look, we got quite a big lot arrived, and the numbers were quite high. And then July again, they start dropping off, and then they got down to 236 on the 30th of August, 270 on the 6th of September. So these were the first ones that arrived back, and they arrived back very early this year. It wasn't overly early. We've had them arrive on the 7th before, but they came in either overnight on the 5th or the morning of the 6th, because I was down on the 6th, and there was quite a few birds with very droopy wings, fed right through the high tide. You know, the one sure way I've noticed about seeing a bird that's just arrived is, you know how they all stand on one leg when they're on the roost? The little leg just keeps falling down like this.
Mm-hmm.
They can't tuck it up, it just keeps falling down. And that's one sure way of knowing that bird's just arrived a few hours ago. So our Godwits were very late last year. It was pretty crazy. The first lot arrived on the 12th of September, and I'd actually predicted they'd arrive on the 12th of September by following the weather systems in Alaska, and they got favourable winds, whereas this year they actually left on the 28th of August, which should have been Miranda's birds, but they were ours. I'm sure they went to Miranda as well. So the first lot arrived, and the counts got up to about just over 600. And then they stopped coming. And yeah, we were all stressed out. And even my daughter said, look, Mum, you were terrible. Our birds haven't come yet. Our birds haven't come. I was in tears about it. And anyway, they still didn't come, and they still didn't come. And then but through October, they still hadn't arrived. And a few people had said, they're not going to come. And I thought, no, look, we're missing 1,000 Godwits. I don't believe that. And so I wrote to Phil Batley at Massey, and I told him, I said, look, this is what's happening with our Godwits. What's the satellite track birds doing? What are the numbers on the Manawatu at Miranda? You know, what are they like? And he said the numbers were pretty normal. The satellite track birds were, some of them had stopped over, some of them were home, but no, there was nothing unusual about it. And anyway, I was tearing my hair out. And anyway, the 21st of October was my birthday, and I always make a birthday wish. Usually, and I win lotto. But this year I said, please, can our Godwits come home? That was my wish. I went down, there was a big tide on the 22nd. I went down, and there was some very stuff-looking Godwits out there. There's the press, there's Peter. And it's like, oh, they're here, they've arrived. And after that, the floodgates just basically opened, and we got a really high count, which my theory was because the adults were so late, maybe they flew with the juveniles, and the juveniles are dying en route, maybe. But that was my theory. And then I heard from someone in Alaska and they said, oh, we're so pleased they made it. We've been watching them. There's been storm system after storm system over Alaska. They just wouldn't clear. So the birds were basically stuck there until the weather cleared and then they all came home. So we were all very, very happy little birders down there. So anyway, this is the bird that made me want to learn how to read bands. I took this photo, it was a few years ago now. It was actually done with the South Road and through the scope, which is quite difficult. But I managed to get a good photo, and the bands are nice and clear. And I've seen this bird many times before I learned who he was. And I've always seen him very late in March. And anyway, I got a reading from Doc. I sent the photo in and did the spot and that, and he is 3RYRW. Now he was banded on the 20th of November 2009 as an adult male. So he's 19 plus years old, this bird. Now he is usually back. I usually start seeing him 29th of September, 1st of October. That's when he arrives back around then. And like I said, I've got spots on him for the 19th and 20th of March, and I didn't have any beyond that until this year. And then this year there was still a group of birds out there very coloured up, but the tide was quite low and they were way out. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go out in the kayak and have a look. So I went out in the kayak, not the binoculars, and you know what? There he is, standing out there just by himself, like, have a look, I'm here. So 22nd of March, that's the latest date I've ever seen him. And yeah, so there he is. This is taken late in March with the other birds, and he's always with the very dark coloured birds, the ones that I assume go to the North Slope. He doesn't colour up as dark. This was taken late in March. I think this was the 20th of March. But here he is. You can see here he is here. Now there's another one there that's a lot darker, but I still think, yeah, he's probably going to the North Slope, because apparently the darker they go and the later they leave is the further north they breed. Now this is another of our birds. This is 3RYYY. This guy's a bit of a poser. Now he's back earlier. He's usually back around the 23rd of September. Again, banded 20th of November 2009. So another bird that's 19 years old or older. Got that with Doc again. And here he is again doing a nice pose where you can see his lovely little bands. And he's really easy to spot too. I always see the double yellow and I know it's him. I don't need to see the other leg. It's like, yep, that's him. So he leaves, I don't have any spots of him basically after the 1st of March. So he obviously goes early. And like I said, he's back around the 23rd of September. Now this bird, this was a bit of a mystery, this one. I saw this bird year after year after year, and I only could see one leg. I was starting to wonder if it's actually a one-legged bird, but no, it isn't. And anyway, here we are on the beach one day. Got the full bands. Now, I looked at this photo and I thought, now that bird's a female. Now, I don't know how I knew that. It's the face. So anyway, this is 3RBBR and female. Banded on the 20th of November 2009. So another one from the same catchment, 19 plus years old. Now, she's actually been sighted around the flyway. She stages in Euloging. She has a stopover occasionally in the Stockton Sandspit in the Hunter Estuary of New South Wales. And she's been sighted here from 2010 to 2014 and again last year. But like I said, I've actually seen her year after year. Now, I got this sighting from New Zealand birders. I think it was Rob Shuckard was the one that gave me the sighting on her and her all her details. And she's another one. She's sighted after the 23rd of September, and no sightings of her after February. So she's another bird that leaves quite early, I would say. Now this one is a real head scratcher. Again, this is all I saw year after year after year. I used to call this bird Mr. Leg Tags. Even before I knew how to read bands, I used to see him in there. He was always back very early, usually in the first week of our first arrivals. And finally, last year, from this terrible photo, I got a ID on him, and he is W1RYWY. I actually thought it was WW, but no, it's WY. Now, he's the oldest banded bird in the estuary. He was banded on the 22nd of October 2004 at the Avon Heathcote. So he's 24 years old plus, if he's still alive. I didn't see him last season. So I haven't seen him yet this season, but I am looking for him. He arrives very early, like I said. He's here usually in the first week of the arrivals. This one, oh no, I'll just pop back to him. Just missed a bit. When I got the ID, he hadn't officially been spotted since January 2013. Wow. So he'd actually been long presumed dead. So I did get great spot for that. That's like the gold medal of birding, that. Now this is Cry. I first spotted Cry on the 30th of September 23. Cry was banded at Barry's Beach, Victoria, 17th of June 2015, age 1. So now 11 years old. Now, Cry's been spotted at Avon Heathcote Estuary from 2016 to 2018, in February 23 and September 23. I didn't see Cry last season, but I got all the information off Birdmark Australia. They were very helpful. They actually sent me all the sightings and everything of him, and my name's now on as one of the sighters for him. Right. This bird has got a bit of a history. This is E20. And yeah, he's got a bit of a checkered past, actually. So I first spotted E20 on the 30th of September 2023, and he's just off migration here, but he still looks quite fat. And E20 was banded in Yulijing on the 23rd of March 2023, so he'd only just been banded that year. As an adult male, I got his identification of the shorebird sightings in the East Asian Australasian flyway. It's on Facebook. They're great. Get a photo up there, they'll find the bander. Catherine Ling in there, she is great. She's really helpful. So anyway, here he is at South Shore on the 30th of September. But hang on. Here he is in New South Wales 3 days later on the 4th of October. So he's going the wrong way. He's looking a bit skinnier here. So, oh, yeah, what's he up to? Oh, wait a minute. Here he is back here again on the 14th of January. So he was here until he migrated in early March, and then I spotted him again in November and a few sightings through November and December. And then just before Christmas last year, I get an email from Adrian Regan at Miranda, and he said, oh, I heard you spotted a bird called E20. Apparently the banders have told. I went, yeah, I did. I actually just saw him yesterday. And he said, so apparently E20 was originally banded at Foxton, 19th of November 2013, as a 1-year-old, and he had a white flag that read BEA. And he wasn't seen again in New Zealand. But he was sighted at Yulijing by David Melville on the 13th to 14th of April 2017. He was caught in Yulijing on the 20th of the 3rd of 23, and the white flag was removed and replaced with the orange and green flag of E20. And nobody told the bander, who I believe was Adrian. So he's 13 years old. And there's the photo the bander sent me. So he's a nice clear photo. He gets quite red. He might be another North Sloper, this guy. But yeah, I'll be expecting him up to turn up soon. Now this one isn't banded, but this bird, I call her, I think it's a female. I call her Whiteface. She's very pale. I think she might have a bit of leucism. And I've seen her here for at least the last 5 to 6 years. Even before I got my scope, I used to see her with the binoculars. This is the bird that made me buy a scope because I got too close to the flock and scared it, trying to get a decent look at her. But anyway, there she is here, if you can see. There. So she does have the facial markings, but she's very, very pale. And she's quite pretty when you see her. She doesn't look that pretty in this, but she's almost like got a heart shape on her face, which makes me think again she's probably a female. But she's pretty. Now this is a juvenile. Now the first time I ever saw a juvenile, I thought I'd seen another species of godwit. Well, oh wow, what's this? A marbled godwit, is it? Oh, hang on, there's another one. Oh God, there's another one. Quick consult at Google. Yeah, they're juveniles. So anyway, this photo was taken on the 7th of October, and this would have been one of the first juveniles home because they started arriving in October. And this photo was actually the 9th of November, so you can see there's a few more around now. That first one probably came with adults. And this photo is the 15th of December. So you can see now they're molting out of their juvenile feathers. I've still got a few here, but they're molting out. And this is the 13th of January. And again, still got a few there, but they're molting out. They're never that beautiful again. And one year when just the juveniles were here, they were on the beach one day, and I was just sitting there watching them through the binoculars and that. And anyway, a hawk come over, and it was being chased by 2 magpies. And there was probably 2,000 oyster catchers and probably about 200 godwits all on the beach, all lined up. And this hawk come over, it swooped down on the flock, right? And the whole flock went up. And it was utter chaos for a few minutes. And then the oyster catchers all come back and they landed, but no, not the godwits. They decided they'd chase the hawk. And so you've got this flock of godwits chasing this hawk, and what they were doing was they would surround the hawk, and then very suddenly they would change direction. And then they'd come back and they'd do it again and then change direction. And you see after a few times this, the hawk started getting really disorientated. He thought, oh, blow this, I'm going, and he went off. And then the godwits all come back and they landed. And I swear the oyster catchers let out a cheer when they landed. They were really good. So this is just an example of, if I pronounce it right, rhynchokinesis, which is bendy beak. It's the ability to bend the top part of the beak. And if you're taking photos in the preening, if you set the camera on to take multiple shots, you usually get one of it. But this bird I just fluked this one photo of him doing it. And he was a wee coloured up male that stayed over, didn't migrate. I don't think he got fat enough, but every time I saw him, he looked grumpy anyway. And here's another one here when they're out feeding. You can see the beaks bent there. It's quite cool, and I've seen them go right up with the beak. And this bird's recently arrived from migration. And you can see here, they got big wing gaps. They can't migrate. They can still fly all right, but they can't migrate when they've got gaps like that. So they're here to stay for a while until they've molted. And I've actually got some feathers here that I'll just pass around if you just want to pass them around. There's 3 wing feathers One looks like it was ejected quite new, and you've got one here that's very worn. It's done full migration, and another one that's quite worn. This one's really worn. And then there's three, they're either tail or under the wing feathers. But I was going to go and just have a look and just pass them around and just have a look while I'm talking. So this bird I saw on the beach. It just arrived. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen a bird so absolutely stuffed. The photo actually doesn't do it justice. But before I took the photo, these little shells here, the bird actually had its head down on the shells like that. And I do believe it might be holding its head up with its beak there. It just couldn't, it was absolutely shattered. And it's not a juvenile or anything, it's an adult. But you can see here the feathers, the real mess, and this poor bird, I just couldn't believe it that it was. Honestly, if that bird had have run into headwinds or that migration had taken another couple of hours, that bird wouldn't have made it, it would have died. Yeah, it was so close to death, but it was still functioning. And there was this particular day, there was a couple of women on the beach, and I sort of got quite close. I'd crawled up and got quite close with the scope, and I was watching them. And there was two women, and I knew they'd come to see the Godwits because they were sort of pointing and like looking. And I went over and I said, have you come to see the Godwits? And they said yes. And I said, look, if you come down and you get down really low and come slow, I said, I'll get you up to my scope and you can have a really good look at them. And I managed to, actually, you can see here, just behind, there's 3RYYY standing there. I think this was about the 30th of September, around then. And so I was able to show them that this bird here on the front, that bird has just arrived a few hours ago. It's got the droopy wings and it's fluffed up. It's got the fluffed up appearance. And yeah, they were absolutely rapt, that they'd come see these Godwits and they'd actually seen them like that close up and they'd been told about them. So, because I like doing that, I often see people down there and they'll ask questions and I always do my best to answer them. And then this this is one of the recent ones. This was actually just taken a few days ago. This poor, as my daughter said, defeated looking, but he wasn't defeated, he made it. But you can see here, like he doesn't look the right shape, or almost the skin's almost hanging on him. And he just looks so tired. And there's another one, he's pulled his feathers out, he's so tired. And he just arrived, he's just been here. And they stagger too, they walk like they're drunk when they just arrived. They can't, and some of them, you see them on the roost and they're like all bandy-legged, And here he is again, and he really doesn't look well. But yeah, they recover a few days. You wouldn't even know, you wouldn't know. So here's some that are actually ready to go. So look at this. This one's usually fat and round and coloured up. These are taken late in March with the last few birds ready to go. There's another one. You can see the beautiful plumage they have when they're in their breeding plumage. And this guy here, I know this bird. There's a few birds I actually recognise by their faces, and this is one of them. He's got a odd-shaped head, I think, but he's just got some look. There's another wee one that's got a certain stance about him, and I just recognise them. And there's another one that seems to have a wee feather that sticks up all the time. I call him Spike. And I kept this in. It's a terrible photo, but this man's like a little ball with legs. He's so round. And he's obviously, and you can see, let's just go back, see how dark this one here is too. So I would say again, North Slopers. And that's my yin and yang photo of the male and female all ready to go. So that's quite a lovely little photo I took. And that's just one of our wintering juveniles that stayed over this winter. So now I'm going to get to the satellite trap birds. Did anyone follow the satellite birds? No? Oh, that's good. You won't know anything. So this is actually Zhu Young Key. It's his photo. Now, I met Zhu last year, but he has a lot to do with Miranda. He lives in Korea, South Korea, and he's right where our two satellite birds used to stage. And he's a shorebird researcher. And he does, you can see the wee aerial poking out there. Mm-hmm. So and anyway, he's in touch with Miranda. He sends them photos because they're Miranda's birds. These birds are Miranda's birds. They were on the Global Flyway Network. In 2020, we had 20 adults from Miranda on the Global Flyway Network that were available to track. And we had 5 birds from Roebuck Bay in Western Australia that we could also track. Now, those birds are a different species and they breed up in Siberia and they go both ways through the LOC. They don't do the long haul migrations like our ones do. And anyway, Shu and I used to have some fun because I used to blog these birds on Facebook and Twitter. And I actually had the Global Flyway Network on Twitter retweeting my tweets, which was quite good. And that, especially on Twitter, I got a lot of views, a lot of interest. Miranda did it for the first few years, but then they stopped. I just think they got too busy. And but there were still 2 birds left on the network that their batteries hadn't gone flat, and it was these 2. And I used to share them all on the South Shore page on Facebook. And I got all the people in South Shore really interested in what these godwits can do. And anyway, when I sort of put up the post that they wouldn't be blogging them anymore, and they all, oh, who's going to blog them? So I sort of went, I'll do it. And sort of got thrown in. And but I managed to do it, and I managed to work out how fast the bird was flying and things like the average speed of the bird. And things like that, you know, I did them. And anyway, so I got an email from Zhou sort of last year, and there was 10 Korean birders were coming out, and they wanted some accommodation, they wanted a guide, and they wanted to be told where to go. And it's like, well, I'm not a tour guide. But all of a sudden I was a tour guide. So they knew about Miranda, so they went there, but I found them accommodation in Christchurch. I got them our local council guide, Andrew Crossland, and I managed to get in touch with him and organise a tour for them. I couldn't do it that day, but I managed to meet with them the next day, and because they'd had the tour, they didn't really need another tour, so they were quite happy to go off and do their own things. But Shu sort of grabs my arm and he said, "No, you pop my personal guide today." And yeah, we went off and we spent the day birding, and we were right around the estuary and into Charlesworth, and the godwits were very hard to find. They were right out in the middle of the estuary and we couldn't see them. And anyway, the rest of the group, some of them come down here and went to the albatross colony. Some went to Oamaru to see the penguins. And Zhu, no, he's only interested in shorebirds. So he wanted to sit at our estuary. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, okay, you come all this way, you just want to sit at our estuary. But I met up with him again on the Saturday, and we did a couple of hours, and the birds were out feeding. And that's when I realised I know why he wants to be here. He's got the whole estuary to himself. I bet in Korea there's probably thousands of people with scopes and cameras all jostling for room, and he's got the whole place to himself. So so that was really cool meeting them, and I'm sure Zhu will be back again. We're good friends now. We're friends on Facebook, and we keep in touch. And he's got all my he asked for all my bird sightings I've logged in, and I've sent them to him, and they are now part of research in Korea, which is really good because he's the head of some research institute over there. I don't know the name of it because everything I get's written in Korean. So, but anyway, this was the female of the satellite birds. This is 4B, yeah, the W is confusing me. 4BWWB. Anyway, this is just two migrations of hers. Can we just move that a bit smaller so you can see the kilometres there. So this is 2 years of migration. So you can see the sort of kilometres they're getting up. It's got 83,783 kilometres. Now, yes, she did actually go to Russia. The first time she did it, they actually thought it was a blip and something wrong with the satellite transmission. But then she did it again. And it's like, oh, no. She's gone. And she only spent a couple of days there both times and then flew on to Alaska. So whether she went with a group of birds that were bound for Russia and then flew on to Alaska, or whether the weather turned her, I don't know. But yeah, she did anyway. So I've got 4.5 years of tracking data on her at home, or actually my computer over there. So this is 2023. This is the first year because all the migrations have been direct, straight to Miranda and home. This year she bailed out of migration. I thought she was going to. She was sort of getting down here and she started veering off here instead of being in a nice straight line. It's incredible when you see them leave Alaska and they just line up New Zealand. They go in a dead straight line for where they want to be. They know where they're going. And you'll see them and they'll drift. The wind will push them and they'll drift and then they'll just adjust their flight again. It's like flight radar for birds. It really is. It was so cool having this. I'd really like to see more of the satellite trends, the satellite coverage of Godwits. It just took me, and it wasn't only me, it was so many people got involved then, really got interested. One of the schools I worked at, the teacher actually tracked the migration with her class. These are primary school kids. So the teacher tracked the migration with her class. The class just lapped it up. Another teacher I gave for the website too, she says it's addictive. I gotta keep checking it on my phone every day to see where the bird is. So anyway, when she bailed out of migration, she went to New Caledonia and she just went to a spot right here. And she was there, she stayed till November. So she stayed over a month in New Caledonia and then went back to Miranda. So she's home, nice and safe home. And anyway, so there she is. There's a little path back to Miranda. And anyway, this is both the male and the female leaving in 2024. That was a weird year for migration. We had, there was a lot of storm systems off the North Island. Ours went out as normal, but the North Island birds affected. And Miranda still had, they still had well over 1,000 birds to go, and it was getting very late in the season. And I know that AJD, the one from Wanganui, left very late. He always goes on the 25th of March at 5 o'clock in the evening. Well, he was late, and the male, the female always left on the 28th, and the male always left on the 24th. But 2024, it's actually the male. The male was behind. That's the female. She actually left. She wasn't running that late. She was round her due date because the weather finally cleared and they got out. Because I'd heard that night that AJD and all the other birds had left for the north that evening, and then the next day they popped up a couple of thousand kilometres out. Because they don't transmit straight away. Sometimes you might have to wait 24 hours to get a transmission on them, and then they're on their way. And anyway, yeah, so that's the female in front and the male behind for once. And anyway, so the female got up to the Solomon Islands, or just before the Solomon Islands there, and I don't know what happened, but something happened. Whether there was juveniles in the flock and they just went, I want to go home, or one or more birds got injured, we don't know. But all of a sudden they turned around and they did a 1,400 kilometre detour back to New Caledonia, of all places. And anyway, she went to the exact same spot she was in the year before. So that must have been all right. She must have liked it there. And then I zoomed in on it, and it's shrimp farms. So, okay, she was having a gourmet dinner, but she only stayed there for a couple of days, and then she went back to Miranda, and they did send people out to do a welfare check on her. She looked fine. She wasn't too skinny. She wasn't injured. So we actually don't know why that happened. But this is both the male and the female, both at Miranda. So you can see they're quite close together in there in the Firth of Thames, not far apart at all. And this is them both coming home in 2022, and that is the male ahead, the female behind, because he always left on the same date. His was he leaves on the 24th of March and heads back on the 27th of September or thereabouts. And the female left on the 28th of March and she was back a few days later. So they always have this day they go, and they'll always try and go on that day with a window of about 4 days either side, unless the weather won't let them. So every god has its own day it likes to leave on. Like I said, AJD was always the 25th of March at 5 o'clock in the evening. One year he went at 5:15. So this is the male. This is for BBRW. You might have heard of him. He's got his own tea towel, this guy. He's famous. He broke a few records of the longest migration. So this again is one of Ju's photos. Now that's him. I'll just zoom down a bit so you can see it. That's his migration. Now he 92,671. That's 2 migrations for him. Now he breeds on the Seaward Peninsula. The female used to breed on the North Slope. Now you can see here in 2021, he stopped over in New South Wales. That because he was actually coming to New Zealand and the wind, he hit headwinds and he went to New South Wales. So that was him going to New South Wales in 2021. And then when he got there, he broke all the records. He'd done 13,050 kilometres, and he had been in the air for 9 days, 23 hours. And he was instantly famous, and apparently no other birds actually bet. They've been in the air longer than time, but not the migration distance yet. And there he is, he's coming home, and he arrived home on the 17th of October. So yeah, 13,050 kilometres in 2021. And then they brought out the ceremonial tea towel for him, which I actually have. I should have brought it, but I didn't. So this is him going last year, leaving for Alaska, or leaving for Korea, sorry, in 2024. So there he is out. It tells you 31st of March. So he's left. Yeah, he did. He left late. So there he is. Both birds stage round the same spot in South Korea, and where Zhu lives is he's in a city just round here somewhere. I know he's south of Seoul. So he said it's about an hour's drive from where he lives to get to the birds. And now this is him going to Alaska. Now his departure date from Korea was always around the 18th of May. Again, always had the same date. So here he is. He probably left on the 17th actually, but that was the 18th of May. He's popped up. And always tell you he was on his way. He's due to leave, and yep, he's on his way now. Now, this sadly was his last ever transmission. The 22nd of the 9th, 2024 at 8:46 p.m. 21 hours out of Alaska, and he stopped transmitting. They didn't see him back at Miranda. and he wasn't spotted in Korea, so he's possibly died, I think, which is a real shame. As far as Phil Batley was concerned, he has an ego problem. But anyway, we don't know. So anyway, this is some of the flights here for the birds. So we can see East Evans still actually holds the record for the fastest flight at 8 days. It was actually 8 days and 4 hours. So she flew at 60 kilometres an hour. And then you come down, see 4BBWB, the female. So she's done one and broken a record here. And then 4BBRW, his first one he broke in 2020 was 9 days, 5 hours, or 12,000 kilometres. And then 4BWWB again broke that in 2020. She did 2021 and 2020. And then 4BBRW, 9 days, 23 hours, 13,060 and 50 at 54 kilometres an hour. But he went to Tweed Heads. He didn't go to Miranda. He stopped in Tweed Heads that year. So he held the record for a year. And then in 2022, they got up to Alaska, and they tagged, so these were 3 hatchling siblings, tiny, out of the egg, got them. And they glued them on, little transmitters, so radio transmitters, so they could go in and find them again when they were a bit bigger. And this was one of the ones that they ended up with 3 satellite transmitters on them. And they were, because the birds are so small, the transmitters were quite loose, allowing the bird to grow. And anyway, 2 of them actually ejected their transmitters before they went to Alaska, before they left, which was a real shame. But this bird flew from, and it's the Max Planck Institute that did them. We had 19 juveniles that we could track on their website, but not anymore. They've stopped that. So anyway, he flew from Alaska to Tasmania, the first ever satellite track bird to go to Tasmania. Now, he was coming to New Zealand, and I'd say he was coming to the South Island. And he hit headwinds, and he went to Tasmania. Now, he flew for 11 days, 1 hour, non-stop. Just incredible what they can do. So just one thing I'd like to say that we did have one coming in 2020, and they recorded it coming into Miranda. It was travelling at over 100 kilometres an hour. So you get a tailwind behind these birds, they can do over 100 kilometres an hour. Now with this bird, B6, the range of a Boeing 787 aircraft is 13,800 kilometres. B6 flew 13,600 kilometres. Thank you.